Are you ready? Sea of Red, it's time for another Fireside Chat, the official podcast of Flames fans. It's go time.
The Calgary Flames have wrapped up their second best season in the history of the Calgary and Atlanta franchise with 111 points. The only one better was 88-89 when they got 117 points. As always, I'm Dan alongside Matt, and Matt, it's May 1st and the regular season's now over.
Yep, and now it's time for the fun to begin. Everybody's stats get zeroed out. None of the wins that happen in the regular season matter. All that matters is 4 wins.
Well, the first thing that matters before those 4 wins is what happened in the last week of the season.
True.
And in the last week of the season, the Flames played 3 games, all on the road. The first game that they played was April 26th against the Predators, and Calgary ended up winning 5-4 in this one in overtime. This was, I would say, an important game if the Flames were going to go on to play Nashville because UC Saros got injured. Matt, what were your thoughts on this one?
This was one where Calgary just needed to not, how would you say it, lose handily, and be too passive. They needed to show a little bit more intensity after the week prior, and after Matt Duchene speared Tkachuk, that response by Lucic in the third period was exactly what the team needed.
Yeah, I thought this one had a playoff game feel to it.
Oh, for sure. And, if it wasn't for the bizarrest last day of the season, for how everything shook out on that day, Calgary was likely going to play Nashville until a whole mess of weird stuff happened. So, it would have definitely been an interesting series had the Flames gone to play Nashville, but it was not looking like it was going to be anything else but until the very last second.
And the Flames had a day off, and on the 28th came back and played the Minnesota Wild, who are also a playoff team. In this one, the Calgary Flames fell again in overtime to Minnesota to a 3-2 loss. What were your thoughts on this one, Matt?
Calgary was kind of mailing it in, doing respectable enough, but you could kind of tell that it wasn't the same level of caring, because the quickest that we'll play Minnesota in the playoffs is in the conference finals, so there's not that same level of urgency. Both teams, it seemed, were kind of more on the let's not get hurt while playing effective, and Calgary came out on the losing end of it due to a weird call in overtime. But, that kind of thing happens, and Minnesota's a very good 3-on-3 and shootout team. Calgary's not, and that's the difference.
Thankfully, they won't have played 3-on-3 or shootouts come the playoffs, but they had to go through one game before that, and the very last game, Game 82, the Flames were on the road on a back-to-back in Winnipeg, taking on the Jets, where the Flames fell 3-1. What were your thoughts on this one?
The Flames couldn't care less, and it showed.
Yeah, I would agree with your thoughts on all 3 games this week. I think they were, to me, each game was pretty much what I expected it to be.
Yeah, running down the clock, literally. Just waiting for, okay, let's get through this so that way we can play the things that matter. And, the Nashville game, that one made sense to be a physical and aggressive game just because of the fact that, if we had played them in round 1, that would have been vital to send those messages, to Duchene, that, if you take liberties by spearing one of our guys, you're going to get your face filled. And, it didn't turn out that way. But any other team is going to realize that, if you bug Tkachuk or Gaudreau, you're going to be facing 5 or 6 different Flames players that are more than happy to show their displeasure with your actions. So, and as Lucic said after the game that, at that point he didn't care about the 2 points. It was all about sending a message to everybody. And that's one of the important things for a playoff team, where you can have guys like Chuck and Gaudreau going out there and doing their thing and not having to worry about chintzy stuff that will get them hurt, because there are like 7 different policemen that the Flames have in their employ that will take care of business if things go a little sideways.
Well, with that week and the final games played, the NHL season for everyone is now over. The Calgary Flames end the series third in the West behind Colorado and Minnesota. The Calgary Flames have 50 wins, 21 losses, and 11 overtime losses for 111 points. More than we both expected they would for this year, and we'll get into our predictions in a little bit here. But overall, I mean, as I mentioned, second best season in the history of the franchise, 111 points, very respectable this year for the Flames.
Yeah, well, this is more a materialization of what this team had in their potential. And, it required the players to work hard. And I think they got by in previous seasons just by out-talenting the opposition. This year they weren't quite as good talent-wise, but the work ethic was right top-notch. And you saw that with the defensive play of the first 2 lines. And Gaudreau joining some elite company was with his plus 64 and 115-point season.
For sure, yeah. I mean, 2 guys with 100 points this year, there's not many teams that can say that. The Calgary Flames, I would say, got the result on the scoreboard that they showed on the ice. This team looked like a very good team, and I think, third in the West sounds a little low, but, 111 points, that's very good.
Yeah, well, to me, it's all about tiers. And Calgary is basically, there are about 6 or 7 teams that are in the uppermost block, and I think that Calgary is one of those teams, and I think each one of them is interchangeable, frankly. The difference between where the Flames finished and first is like 5 wins, which, if Calgary didn't go through that whole COVID episode, perhaps, that would have been the difference right there. So, I think that Calgary, despite having 111 points, I think kind of underperformed how good they were this year.
I would agree with that. I think the Flames definitely had some challenges and could have been better, but, still very respectable where they left off. Well, Matt, let's look ahead at NHL Awards before we get to the playoffs. Of course, awards haven't all been handed out yet, but Chris Tanev has been nominated for the Flames nominee for the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy. And the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy, defined by the league as awarded to the player who best exemplifies the qualities of perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. Named after Bill Masterton, the only player in NHL history to die as the direct result of injuries suffered in a game. This is an award where I believe every team puts forward 1 nominee, and Tanev is ours. So, surprised by that nomination for the Flames?
Well, not really. It's one of those where Calgary needed to nominate somebody, and Calgary was basically the healthiest team in the league this year, so there wasn't really any adversity in terms of, overcoming cancer or a season-ending injury the previous year to be awesome, or insert whatever. Calgary just didn't have that storyline at all. So Yeah. Well,
and when I look at the 3 words perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey, I think that Chris Tanev is as good a nominee. I think there's a lot of guys in this team that could probably go for that definition, but I think Tanev's a good option for the Flames.
Yep.
Gary Roberts and Lanny McDonald, 2 previous Flames, have won the award as well. The other trophy or I guess award that I wanted to talk about was the Jennings Award. And the Jennings Award is one that a lot of people forget even exists. The Jennings Award is a goaltending award. And it is, it's technically a team award. It's awarded to the goaltender or goaltenders having played a minimum 25 games for the team with the fewest goals against in the regular season. And this can be one goaltender or two goaltenders. And Darren Haynes tweeted out on April 29th, the Flames lost the Jennings Award because of their empty net goals against and how many empty net goals against they've allowed. And when I read that, I'm not sure how to feel about that. I mean, to me, I don't think that empty net goals against should count against your tandem.
Yeah, but how many did Carolina have in turn? And it's one of those things that Calgary, yeah, okay, they didn't finish first, but they were right there. And like them, the Rangers and the Hurricanes were basically a very close grouping of 1, 2, 3. Then there's a huge gulf to number 4, and then another huge gulf beyond that. And, you know, like most teams gave up like 30 goals more than Calgary or more.
Calgary had 11, Carolina had 6.
Yeah. But, you know, it's one of those things that, like, just for pure goals against, like, Calgary did an absolutely spectacular job in terms of preventing goals. And while they weren't quite number 1, they were very close. And
for sure. And I guess my issue is just that if we read the text from the league, it's not awarded to the team, it's awarded to the goaltenders. And I question how our goaltenders can be at fault for letting in empty netters.
Yeah. Well, just to put into perspective, in the Western Conference, we surrendered 208 goals, and Colorado was the second fewest with 234. And in the East, the 3 that were clearly better than everybody else were Carolina with 202, New York Rangers with 207, and then the Boston Bruins with 220, and then like everybody else is like 230 or above. So it's one of those things that like the 3 teams between Calgary, Carolina, and New York were clearly better than everybody else at preventing pucks in their net. And one of the better indications is that Calgary actually scored 293 goals, where Carolina only scored 278 and the New York Rangers only 254. So the goal differential was the more spectacular thing for Calgary.
I'd have to do the math on those, but maybe the way to look at it would be the percentage of goals that are empty net and go by that instead of the pure number.
Yeah.
But
And by the way, also just while I'm mentioning it, for goal differential, Calgary was second only to the Florida Panthers in the entire NHL for goal differential.
Wow. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Which Florida scored a whopping 340 goals, which is just insane. But, you know, yeah. There's a reason they won the President's Trophy.
Yeah, I guess it's just that wording of awarded to the goaltenders, but yet they're being disqualified for something that they have no control over. So I don't know. Maybe the league just needs to revise that wording to say the team, and make it
with
team
the
award.
goals against. Yeah,
because I mean, if you're standing if you're sitting on the bench, how can you have any control over that? It's not like Markstrom's gonna leap off the bench and stop that.
Yeah, I know. It is unfortunate, but. You know, that's how it goes, and you know, as you said, the wording seems to be.
I'm just reading us the actual NHL wording, right? So this is the way the league words it, and based on that, it doesn't seem like it's right.
No, because then both Calgary and Carolina should be tied-ish, or so, and yeah, it's one of those where you know you're getting into splitting hair territory, but. You know, it is what it is.
And the last note on awards here is 2 Calgary Flames named to the All-Rookie team in the age, or not 2 Calgary Flames, 2 Calgary Flames prospects named to the All-Rookie team in the AHL. Generally, 1 player per position is named to that team, and we have Dustin Wolf and Jacob Pelletier both named to the AHL All-Rookie team. So, good for those 2.
Yeah, which makes sense. Dustin Wolf's actually in the running for league MVP. That's just kind of how good of a season he had down there. So we'll see if he ends up winning that award. But he surely will get the Goalie of the Year award as well in the A.
for sure. And I could see him even getting Rookie of the Year.
Oh, I think that's a shoo-in for him. And also, speaking of potential awards for Calgary, Markstrom, I think, will be a finalist for the Vezina. Lindholm, probably a finalist for the Selke Trophy. Gaudreau, a possible finalist, if not, well, in my opinion, he should be the favorite to win the Hart Trophy. And Daryl Sutter is definitely going to win the Jack Adams.
Well, let's talk about the Jack Adams thing for a sec. So, again, if we look at the actual wording from the league, awarded to the NHL coach adjudged to have contributed the most to his team's success.
Yeah.
Based on that wording, you can't give it to anybody else but Daryl. I mean, there's been no other coaching changes here for playoff teams that I would say has been as impactful.
No, like Daryl righted the ship in terms of the entire Flames organization and got everybody playing the right way. So, yeah, no, there literally is no number two that, you could say is better or even close. Like, it's Daryl's and then whoever's second.
What do you think Daryl would have to do to be a shoo-in for that?
I think he already has it, to tell you the truth. Like, I don't think that there's anything else needed. Like, he did just an absolutely amazing job with this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think right now it's Sutter's award. I don't think there's anyone else that deserves it more than him. Yes, I mean the coach oftentimes will go to the coach of one of the top teams, but I think that those coaches, they weren't changed, and B, I don't think we could say that they were all that much more impactful to their team's outcome.
No, and like the only other guy that even stands out at all is Andrew Brunette for the Florida Panthers, the rookie coach there. And that's just because of the whole Joel Quenneville firing and like that whole drama at the beginning of the year. And for him to walk in cold. That being said, Florida is one of those teams like the Avalanche team that Mark Crawford won a cup with, where I don't think it matters who's behind the bench. That team is going to be just amazing regardless.
You could coach that team and they'd probably still be good.
You could even coach that team and they'd still be good.
Me? Wow. Let's not go that far. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think if we look at, again, the actual text from the league, Daryl Sutter has that one locked up.
Yeah.
Unless Daryl loses that because he had too many empty net goals against as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that with Calgary being a non-playoff team from last season, even though they were just right there, to being as good as they've been, like there's literally nobody else, period.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, Matt, this is one of my favorite times of the year. We get to look back at our preseason predictions that we made and see how we think that we did on our predictions.
Yeah, something tells me my outlandish predictions were a little bit more bang on.
So October 14th is when we made these predictions, way back before the season started. Let's go through these. Which player does the Flames season most hinge on? I said Tkachuk and you said Markstrom. I think we can give both of us a point on that one.
Yeah. Between those two, Tkachuk, or Gaudreau and Lindholm, it's basically a four-man team there. And, I think any of those would have been a correct answer.
Second question was, who needs to have a breakout season? I said Monahan and you said Mangiapane.
Yeah. I think 35 goals, I think, speaks for itself on that one.
35 goals, but I wouldn't say that was a breakout season. I mean, he got, 32 goals last year, Mangiapane, so he's pretty much on...
23.
Right, 20. Yeah, no, I'm thinking total points, yeah. I would say, though, based on what we saw, I think it would be fair to argue that Sean needed that breakout season, being that fourth-line center.
Yeah, but...
I think Mangiapane was predicted for, but Sean really needed it to cement his season here.
Well, I think that Mangiapane definitely needed it to take the next step in his career, and where he was kind of a fringy third, fourth line guy before, and to take that next step to be a legit second line, first line guy, for him it was necessary. But
all right, well, why don't we give ourselves both a point for that one?
Well, How would you say Monahan didn't really have a he basically struggled all season.
Right, but the question is who needs to have a breakout season? I don't think Monahan achieved the breakout season, but I think he had to have that.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be having very different discussions about Sean Monahan come off season because he didn't have that.
True.
Right? It's not who would, it was who needs to.
True.
I would argue that Monahan probably needed it more than Mangiapane did. But we'll give ourselves both a point on that one.
Yeah.
Next one, who will have a breakout season? You said Mangiapane and I said Hanifin.
I think they're both a point on that one because Hanifin, 48 points and being a number one defenseman.
I would say that I'll give them both a point, but I would say that Hanifin probably had the bigger breakout of the two.
I think that's as close of a draw as you can. Going from 20 plus goals to 35 is a huge jump.
If we just look at it offensively, but Hanifin also kind of stepped into the number one role and kept it all year.
It's one of those for their respective roles. I think they had an equal jump for their game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that their roles are different.
The next one, I think we both got wrong. Who will struggle this season? I said Shillington. Obviously, I was wrong because we predicted this when the guy barely made the team last year. You couldn't struggle much more than he did. And you said Backlund.
Yeah, and yeah.
I wouldn't say Backlund struggled. I think Backlund's just getting older.
Yeah, it's one of those, my answer was a little more right, but yeah, not really.
I'm not going to give either of us a point for that one.
No.
Who will Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I had said Monahan, that would have definitely been a point.
That would have, yeah. Who will pleasantly surprise us? I said Eric Goodbranson. You said Dan Vladar.
And I'd have to say we both get a point on that.
I would agree. I think Vladar's looked better than we expected to. I think Goodbranson
Well, getting 13 wins as a backup goalie, I can't remember the last time a Flames backup got 13 wins.
No, and looked
huge.
good in all of them.
Yeah. He basically looks like a younger version of Jacob Markstrom in that. And a little shaky, but, all of the tools are still there. So, and it's good to see. And he took a big step forward in his development because he's really young. He's only 23. So, that's a big deal. And, yeah. Goodbranson was nothing short of amazing for him
for the role he plays on this team.
Yeah, this is a guy that if the Flames decide to re-sign him for 2 or 3 years, I'd be A-okay with that.
Me too, especially if they can get him at roughly the same cost.
Yeah.
The next question we both got right, but you put a caveat on it that made you not as right.
Okay.
Will both goalies be able to stay healthy? We both said yes, but you thought Markstrom would be hurt for about a week.
Yeah.
Now, if we take COVID out, which we don't actually know if he got COVID.
Everybody did. So, literally the whole team got it.
So, I mean, yeah, we're both right there, but I'm going to give you a half point because you qualified yourself out of that one.
Yeah.
How many starts will Markstrom get? He had 63. I said 65. You said 55. I think we can probably both agree that they probably rode Markstrom a little harder than they should have.
Yeah. You were more correct on that one for sure, but yeah, I think that we both were somewhere in between our two numbers would be ideal, and yet Daryl 65, yeah.
Are we going to use Price is Right rules, and if you bid even $1 over, you don't get it right?
Yeah. Well, we were both under, so...
Well, no, I was over. I'm at 65, and he had 63.
Oh, okay.
So,
well,
I'm close, but I went over.
Yeah.
It's like blackjack, I bust.
Yep.
Who will be the top point getter for the Calgary Flames? We both had the same answer. Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
I don't think either of us expect him to get as many points as he does, but we both expect him to be the top point getter.
Yeah, well, yes, of course. Walking into this season after what we've seen over the past year, oh yes, he's going to put up the second most points that any Flame has ever done.
That's right.
And era adjusted, it's the best season ever by a Calgary Flame. Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, right. Great for Gaudreau. Absolute treat.
How can we convince this guy to take a 1-year deal so we get him in a contract year every year?
Yeah. Well, it's like, can we just say, hey, here's, like $90 million over 8 years. Stay and just, keep doing that. Because, like, the effort level, honestly, Gaudreau, I personally don't see how he doesn't win the Hart Trophy just because of the plus-minus thing. The best plus-minus since 86, 87. And, it being Wayne Gretzky that posted that, and, like, he's literally the first guy outside of, like, 71 to 87 to post a plus 60 or more as a forward. Like, the defensive responsibility of both him and his line mates and just the raw ability to score on 5-on-5, like, it was a truly remarkable season for Gaudreau.
It was, and we'll talk more about Johnny and what that contract might look like in coming shows.
Mm-hmm.
The next question, who will be the first call-up for the season for both forward and defense? This is a weird flashback, Matt. Glenn Gaudin was already in the lineup for the season opener. Like, when you look back at this season, there's a name you don't even think of. The Glenn Gaudin was here at one point.
Oh, yeah, for like 3 seconds.
He was on the opening day roster, so our qualification was you couldn't say Gaudin was the first call-up.
Yeah.
So the correct answer, forward Walker Duehr was the first forward, and defenseman Connor Mackey. And I thought it would be Phillips and Mackey. You correctly predicted Duehr and Mackey.
Yeah.
Which I think Duehr's an interesting guy. They obviously were quite high on him at the beginning, but it almost looks now like, maybe I don't want to say his upside's not there, but I think he's probably not going to be a guy we see in contention to make a spot on this team next year.
Yeah, it's one of those that, like, if Duehr ever makes it full-time in the NHL, he's going to be a third, fourth line, crash and bang type guy. Which, that's a viable, valuable player, but he needs more time in the A to firmly cement his game. And he looked okay in his recall, but, it's one of those things. He's a young player, needs more time. It was his rookie year.
And I'm going to make a bold prediction. We never see Matthew Phillips on Flames jersey.
Which is a disappointment because I think he could be a good one. But,
I just think there might be, and we'll talk more about this in the off-season show, but I think he might be something you package up with another asset to sweeten a deal.
And I'm not going to argue there. Like, it's just disappointing because of him being a local kid and, as skilled as he is, just to even see what we've got in him as a player. But, like, how would you say, it's hard finding skilled players like that. So, like, if, you don't at least try them out, it seems like a little bit of a waste just in terms of an asset, even if he is, like, absolutely small as, like, he would be one of, like, the smallest players ever to play the game. But, it's one of those that when you put up as many points as he did in Stockton and he was the catalyst down there, I would like him to get a shot, but,
I think he'll be in the NHL
agree.
someday. I just don't think he'll be in a Flames
I
jersey.
agree.
The next question, I guess we could argue semantics on, but will a call-up be able to take a full-time roster spot? And again, we qualified Gaudin couldn't be it because he was already here in the opener. We both said no. And I was debating, would we say that Adam Ruzicka took a full-time roster spot? But I guess my counter would be he did get sent back to the AHL for a while, which I would say means he didn't get a full-time spot.
He very close, and I expect him to be a full-time Flame next year. He looked great in the time that he played for a rookie in his situation. Very little to complain about with Adam Ruzicka, and it'll be interesting to see if he can get a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit more consistent. But, all of the tools are there, all the potential is there for him to be a good middle six forward.
Again, the next question, I'm going to say you lose in a technicality. Who's the first Flame traded? I said either Michael Backlund or Oliver Shillington. You said no roster player would be traded. Technically, Pitlick got traded and he was on our roster even though he was injured. I'll give you the point, but
I know it's one of those like, okay, yes, but
it's like the argument we just had about the Jennings Award, right?
It's like the guy hadn't played like practically all season because he was hurt.
No, but if you look at the transaction, it was a Calgary.
I know.
Yeah, so I'll give you the point. I'll give you the point for that. But yeah, technically, we did trade a roster player.
Cap dump. Yay.
The next question, what type of player or role do we need at the deadline? I said a veteran depth right winger. You could argue we got that before the deadline in Toffoli, as they're playing him as a right winger, even though I'd say that wasn't at the deadline. It was a deadline acquisition. You said a number 4 defenseman to push the door off to the third pairing. Because at the time, if you remember, the Flames were playing him on pair 2.
And
I would say we probably both lose that one.
It's one of those things that, like, the depth kind of sorted itself out, and, like, Tree got his homework with Toffoli done early. And, you know, while the Flames did add a couple extra depth guys in Carpenter and Yarncroc, both of them are centers, primarily.
Yeah, and I would say that I think in the spirit of what you wanted to get a defenseman to push the door off to the third pair, but he was already in the third pair.
Yeah, shortly thereafter, because Shillington decided to be Mr. Amazing this year.
So I would say that in that case, we're not going to give either of us a point.
Because who knew our trade deadline acquisition was going to be Oliver Shillington? You know, becoming basically TJ Brody.
That's right. And I think, you know, a big story of this season, too, is our defensemen. All 6 of them, all 6 of our defenders had career years, and I think we probably filled the Giordano void better than we all thought we were going to.
Honestly, I think this is one of the Flames' best defense cores that they've had in the last 30 years. You know,
I'd agree with that.
Because, like, you go 1 through 6, and, like, there's no weak spot. Like, that third pairing is just... You know, like any forwards, like, what side do I put the puck down? Because, the 6'5" mean guy is going to hit me. You know, and especially in the coming games in the playoffs, like, that's going to be not so fun for Dallas. And, you know, that's why we hired them, because smash.
That's right. Here's where we both underestimated the team. Where will the Flames finish right in the regular season in the Pacific Division? I said 3rd behind Vegas and Edmonton. You said 2nd behind Vegas. We both overestimated Vegas.
Well, they went out and got Jack Eichel, and that was supposed to change everything for them, and it did. You know,
again, that's going to be one where I think
he brought the Buffalo to Vegas.
I mean, we won't make this into a Vegas Golden Knights podcast, but I think that's going to be one where fans are going to have to scratch their head and ask if giving up those many futures was really a good idea.
And the thing is that, you know, it is just karma, because the Flames did have the better offer reportedly. And, you know, it was just literally, we didn't want to take an extra cap on by Buffalo. So the hockey gods punished both Vegas and Buffalo. So, yay.
So we both got that one wrong, thankfully. How many regular season points will the Flames get? They end up with 111. I said 92. You said 98. So I'm okay that we're both wrong on that. Thankfully, the next one didn't come true. If the Flames don't make the playoffs, does the GM get fired? I said yes, the GM and the coach. You said just the GM. I think at this point, they might be, if the Flames go deep, they might be throwing more money at this
honestly,
GM to
I
keep him here
think
longer.
Living might get GM of the year.
Yeah, I think so.
Or at least be 2nd or 3rd. Like, I don't really see anybody that's, you know, like, he did a lot this year to, you know, like, between, like, all the little tinkering, getting the depth guys that he did that were just the right types of guys, and getting the right fit for the coach, and, like, all, you know, the right trade deadline acquisitions, and you know, like, he did a lot this year to sculpt this team into what it should be, which is a team that can actually viably compete for the Stanley Cup.
I'm going to throw out one of the questions here. Will the Olympic break kill their momentum? Because there was no Olympic break.
Well, it didn't, because all the games got rescheduled, and then we won them all. So it enhanced our momentum, because everybody came in cold, and we just beat them.
what do the Flames need to do to be successful for this season? I said be difficult to play against and everybody buy into their role, and you said play their game. So I think we both get a point there.
Because they
that's one thing we
did
saw.
play their game, and and they were hell to play against. And frankly, like when you look at all the makeups of the various playoff teams, Calgary is going to be the toughest team to play against. Whether that's
for sure
translates into us winning games or not, just from a physical standpoint, Calgary is a very heavy team with skill. So have fun, everybody.
We're going to revisit a couple of these. I'll read them off here, but there's a couple we have to revisit after the playoffs. Will Markstrom be Vezina candidate? We both say yes, but we don't know for sure.
He should be.
Will Daryl Sutter be Jack Adams? We just talked about that. Yes, but again, we don't know for sure, so we'll come back to those.
Yes.
How far can the Flames go in the playoffs? We both said the second round. And who will be the Flames' unexpected playoff hero? I said Lucic, and you said Mangiapane.
Have bread, we'll travel.
So let's talk about the playoffs since we're there. The Calgary Flames know who their opponent is. Our series will start on Tuesday, the 3rd of May, and it'll be the Calgary Flames hosting the Dallas Stars. Matt, of the two groups that we could have played, Nashville and Dallas, how do you feel about this matchup?
I just want to say that last game of the season was the strangest way for everything to get sorted out. First, Dallas plays an emergency backup goalie in their game and just barely squeaks out a win against Anaheim. Then Nashville gets a 4-0 lead in the first 7 minutes and blows it to Arizona. Like, that is like the two most unlikely outcomes possible. And if anybody was hoping for Nashville, then, they walked away that evening sorely disappointed. It's one of those things. Both Dallas and Nashville, especially with Nashville losing Saros for, basically the next 2 weeks, which will be their season. Nashville instantly became beatable just because Ingram and Riddick are not going to be able to handle either Calgary or Colorado. But Dallas is basically a one-line team. So, of the 14 teams not named Edmonton and LA, Dallas is the weakest of the groups. And some could argue that they're even the weakest, period. So
we talked about the two teams in the past, so we won't necessarily break down, the comparison, but I think. And I was on the Shifts and Pucks podcast today, so if you want to hear more breakdown of my thoughts, you can go listen to that. But I think Calgary has the edge in net. I think Calgary has the edge in their, 12 forwards in terms of forward depth. I think the teams are pretty even on defense. What do you think?
I think the Flames have the edge on defense too. It's light though. It's closer than the forward group. The Flames are hands down. The first line is better than their first line, and then, it's not even a contest. Second line, third line, fourth line. Defense, though, I think it leans Calgary 60-40, which it's more like 80-20 for the forward group. And the goaltending, obviously, a Vezina candidate versus a rookie, it lends towards Calgary there, too. So... this is probably the biggest mismatch out of all of the playoff series, just on paper. That being said, they actually have to go out and play the games, and Calgary has to get out of their own way.
I think in terms of a long run, Dallas is going to be the easier team on the Calgary Flames. I think that trying to contain Nashville would have taken a lot more physical toll on this team.
I can see that.
So I'm not saying it's going to be an easy series, but I think that of the two teams, this is the one I would rather have sort of as the first round if we're planning to go go deep.
Frankly, this season is lined up rather well for Calgary to go on that run, because frankly, in my opinion, the two worst teams in the playoffs are the Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings. And they get the luxury of playing each other. And then, assuming that we beat Dallas, like, we get to play the best of the worst two teams. Which, LA. But it's one of those things that, like Calgary basically is facing the two easiest teams through the first two rounds, if they can do that.
Well, let's focus on the first round right now.
I'm just talking about, like, the overall run part. Like, Calgary has, like, the easiest road. And you look at, like, Colorado, they get Nashville in the first round, but then they have to play either a tough St. Louis or Minnesota team. Minnesota and St. Louis have to play each other, and then probably Colorado, then probably us. And then the Eastern Conference is just a gauntlet of everybody's awesome and, have fun, everybody.
When I look at the 12 forwards for Calgary and the 12 forwards for Dallas, I think that Calgary's going to have the advantage because they have 12 forwards that are, I would say, let's take the fourth line out. Let's say they have 9 forwards who are probably more NHL ready for the playoffs than Dallas. I mean, if we look at Dallas, they've got Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski on line 1. That's a good NHL line. Ben, Sagan, Garyanov, line 2. Sure.
Yeah.
And then the third line is Kuravanta, Fosca, and Luke Glendening.
Which it's like, that wouldn't be even our fourth line.
And then fourth line, there's sort of a mix of random NHL veterans in Michael Raffl, Vladimir Nemesnikov, and Alexander Radulov.
It's like, hey, we have bodies under contract. And fourth line you go.
And when we look at the D pairs, I mean, obviously we have Hanifin Anderson, Shillington Tanev, Zadorov Stone, or Zadorov Goodbranson. And they've got Ryan Suter, Mirko Heiskanen, Thomas Harley, and Esa Lindell, and then Joel Hanley and Jenny Kakapana, who I've never even heard of, the last two. So I think Calgary has 6 better defensemen, but I think that, Esa Lindell, he can be kind of cheap, and he could be a pain for Calgary. And if they get John Klingberg back, I think that's going to really change Dallas's defense.
It's one of those things that, like, every team that's in the playoffs that obviously has enough skill to get into the playoffs, and, like, they're a talented team. It's just limited. And, like, Calgary, you're going to get Suter and Heiskanen playing against the Gaudreau line pretty much whenever possible. But then, the second line with Mangiapane, Toffoli, and Backlund, they're going to be getting a weaker group. And the third line with Dubé, Yarncroc, and Coleman are going to get an even weaker group to go up against. And, it's not like Dallas where they have one offensive line. Like, Calgary has 3 offensive lines. And, it's going to be tough for the second and third pairing of the Stars to be able to both manage that and, adapt and overcome the frankly better players coming at them from the middle 6.
We discussed this question on the Shifts and Pucks podcast, but I want to get your thought on it, Matt. Do you think that the strategy around line usage is going to change based on who the home team is? I think Calgary's probably going to roll their lines in games 1 and 2, or pretty close to it, but I can see Dallas wanting to take advantage of last change to try and get advantageous matchups against the Flames more than the Flames would.
How would you say the Flames, for once, can really trust all 4 lines defensively? And, of course, Dallas is going to want to get their first line out against Calgary's fourth line as much as possible. That's, a very limited opportunity in each game, and they might only have 3 or 4 shots at that throughout a game, frankly. Because Daryl also knows that, that Dallas is going to be wanting to exploit that particular matchup, and so he's going to make sure that line gets out right after that first line is done, whenever possible, even if he has to swap, the fourth line with a shift with the third line or whatever, so that way, to avoid that.
Like Daryl's not much of a line matcher. I think he'll probably just roll his lines or have them play as they were scheduled.
Yeah. Honestly, it's one of those where situation, I think, dictates creativity. And, like, if the Flames are rolling over the Stars, like, there's no need to deviate from 1-4, 1-4, 1-4, you know, and just roll through 1 through 4 and you're good. If the Flames are trailing or they need a goal, maybe you shorten that bench up a bit and roll 3 lines, which is perfectly viable because, you know, and just try to get momentum that way because you have 3 good two-way lines and, you know, see how it goes. And, you know, if necessary, you can even switch things up because when Daryl's done that in the past, it's worked on limited basis. So, you know, Daryl has a whole bunch of weapons at his disposal, where Bowness really has. We have a first line, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'd say they probably got a line and a half.
Because like Sagan is still respectable, but Gurionov and Ben are both kind of lousy at this point in terms of generating offense. And then the third line, it's non-existent, and the fourth line, it's even less so.
Are you in the past? One of the criticisms about the Calgary Flames top players, especially Johnny Gaudreau, is they disappeared in the playoffs. Are you worried that we're going to see that this year?
Well, frankly, this team, you know, especially with it being a contract year for Gaudreau, like if the Flames are out early, either in the first or second round, you know, that's a legacy thing for Gaudreau. Because here's a guy who was the guy for the Flames, and he couldn't get his team out of the first or second round. You know, and, you know, fairly or unfairly, that's going to leave a mark on him if he can't fight his way through. And while he has been okay in the playoffs, like, he needs to do more. And I think that with his emphasis on his two-way game this year, I think that's, you know, a better indication that he should be able to translate that into the postseason. But, you know, we have to wait until we're a couple of games in order to determine that. So,
yeah, I agree with you that I think that this year he can't. I think that he's bought in, and I think more than in the past, he's bought into what the Flames want of him. And I just think that this year, everyone on the team seems to want to go deep and be ready to go deep. And only the Flames can do that if Johnny's not performing the way we need him to.
No, and like this team basically needs all 20 guys pulling in the same direction. And, you know, they have been thus far this season. They've been extremely consistent in their effort levels. Like, even if they're not generating results in a specific game or period, they're still finding it within them to push and push and push and push, which has led to comebacks and, you know, just winning games and blowing teams out. It's the reason why they have 111 points this year. But Calgary, you know, especially the players on the team, like, you know, Calgary has basically become a bit of a joke over the last while of being a very talented team that can't do anything in the playoffs. And, you know, like that year, a couple years ago when they lost to Colorado, they should have beat Dallas last time and were the better team in 5 out of the 6 games and still lost that series. And, you know, and it's like them beating themselves and finding ways to lose when, you know, based on talent level, Calgary should have gone deep in 2 or 3 of the past few seasons. But, you know, they got in their own way. And Calgary needs to show that, yeah, we're different this year.
Who do you think's going to... I agree with everything you said, and I think that, yeah, it's about showing we can do this, and we're a different team, and we've matured. I think maybe the best word for me is matured. We're a lot of the same core, but we've learned some lessons.
Yeah, and I like to look at, like, the Washington Capitals for all those years. And, like, they were perennially, like, the best team in the NHL, or right up there. And as soon as the playoffs hit, they died instantly. Like, you know, and it didn't matter in what embarrassing fashion they did. Like that one year that they lost to Montreal because Yaroslav Halak stood on his head. You know, like, they just sucked when it came to the playoffs. And like the Flames this year, Ovechkin and that team bought into what Barry Trotz was selling on the defensive side of things, and they went all the way and won the Stanley Cup. And Calgary has bought in defensively and are one of the best defensive teams in the NHL, and it's, they have to follow through and actually do their homework and, complete each question on the page instead of, well, I'm smart, so I'll get through. You can't, this is the real world now, where effort outstrips everything else. Like, you look back to 03-04, the Flames were not a good team in terms of talent, but the effort level was at the absolute peak, and we surprised everybody and got all the way to the 7th game of the finals.
And we've been hearing the Flames talk about that in the last week, about taking their foot off the gas against Colorado a few years ago and not doing that this year. So I think that they mentally at least are ready to go in playing the way they need to.
Yeah, and I think that, if they can take it one game at a time and, get through Dallas, I think that, the confidence that just getting through Dallas, I think will be enough that, hey, like when we won in Anaheim, that, okay, yeah, we can do this. And, because we're doing all the right things now, so let's just keep doing them and, let's get this ball rolling. And, I think that, if they can manage to stay within themselves and not get in their own way, by laziness or overconfidence, and just doing the little things, finishing those checks, being right there defensively when you need to be, all the little ticky-tacky things that don't really show up on the score sheet but matter vitally. If they can manage to do those things, then it'll be a fun couple weeks.
In 04, I guess maybe the X factor, the surprise player who made a big impact was Marty Gelinas. We know him now as the Eliminator. Who do you think is going to be that Flame that we're not maybe expecting great things from and comes in and, really makes a difference for the Flames this year?
I'm going to have two names on the list, and it's the two trade deadline acquisitions, Tyler Toffoli and Calle Jarnkrok. I think that they're both proven playoff performers and are good in the right situations for timely points, timely goals, timely assists. And, we need the secondary guys, because the primary guys are going to do their thing. We need the secondary guys to chip in when possible, and I think those two guys are going to be instrumental for this team to go deep.
I'm going to take one of your names and go with Toffoli, and I'm also going to add Coleman to that list.
I agree with Coleman. I would have added him too. I think
Coleman's maybe underperformed a little bit this year, and I think that really this team brought him in for some of that playoff performance.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to be the playoff fan favorite? I mean, I think about a couple years ago when the Flames played Vancouver, it was Furland who really became the playoff fan favorite. We all remember in the 04 run, everyone was wearing their Mike Commodore wigs. Who's going to be the real fan favorite for the Sea of Red this year?
I'm going to have to go with Eric Goodbranson.
Really? Why Goodbranson?
I have a feeling that some fisticuffs are going to happen. And that because Goodbranson's an excellent fighter, he is going to fill the face of whomever it is. And that's going to pump the team up and the fans up. And then, carry on. I think he's going to have his Derek Englund moment in one of the games where, he's just the center of attention. And, and I think that, it's always one of those depth guys that, and I think that he's going to be the impactful depth guy.
We're already seeing a lot of talk about Milan Lucic with the suits he's been wearing over the last few weeks and the cowboy hat, and I think that's going to roll into the playoffs. And I can even see fans come to the game instead of in their jersey and their funky suits, and I think it'll be Lucic.
Yeah, I agree. If I was going to go with a forward, it would have been him. And
we saw Lucic on Hockey Night in Canada in his underwear and his cowboy hat. I think that he's more of a character than Goodbranson that people are going to rally around in the playoffs.
Oh, for sure. And, how would you say the Flames have like 6 or 7 guys that we don't have just one Michael Furlan. We have like a whole fleet of Michael Furlans. Zadorov, Goodbranson, Coleman can throw it. Kachuk can throw it. Toffoli even can.
Well, I don't even think it has to be guys that'll throw it, but I think like even Commodore, I don't think did a lot of the fighting, but he was just a very charismatic guy.
Yeah. So both on the ice and off, I think that there's a number of guys on this team that can be fun. And we're just beginning the start of the Matthew Tkachuk friendship tour, so it's gonna be awesome.
7-game series coming up. Starts on the 3rd, could end as late as the 15th. How many games do you think it's going to take?
5.
You think it'll be a 5-game series?
And I'm being generous.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a sweep, but 5.
I think we're looking at 6. I think Dallas will pull out 2. Yeah, I think Dallas will pull out 2 wins.
Yeah.
I think one Calgary might not look great, and I can also see with these two teams one game that goes a couple overtimes.
Oh, I think there might be an overtime game or 2 in this series, but I'm just very confident that this team will. How would you say it? In order to slay the demons, I think they might be gunning a little bit harder than they normally would, and I think that and really wanting to give the other team a black eye. I think that they're going to be going all out in very much the same way that the Flames did when they played Vancouver that one year, and where it's just a physical bloodbath throughout the round. And I think that Calgary, they have the offensive tools to back it up, but I think that it's just going to be a rough and tumble series, and I don't think that Dallas has the horses to keep up.
We couldn't get through a Flames playoff preview knowing that the Oilers are also in without talking a little bit about the Oilers. The Oilers take on the LA Kings. 2 teams that, I don't know, this is the series to me that I think could go either way. I think that it's 2 teams that are okay, and I can see this one going either way, but I have a feeling that the Oilers are... I can see it going either way, but I get this sense the Oilers are going to be out.
Yeah. How would you say Edmonton is very much a one-line team, and like getting Duncan Keith actually did help the team, I think, a lot more than a lot of fans might have thought would have happened. But like the whole makeup of that team, like they are paper thin, and they're going up against a very disciplined LA Kings team. They don't take very many penalties at all in the regular season. They were one of the least penalized teams in the league. Which that's like Edmonton's only offensive weapon is scoring on the power play. Then you have Anze Kopitar, who's like one of the 3 best defensive forwards in the entire NHL. He's going to get stapled to the McDavid line, and his line will be out there whenever possible to prevent them from doing anything. And then you have Jonathan Quick, who is, even though he's older, is still a way better goalie than Mike Smith. So, while yes, the Kings are missing Drew Doughty, the difference is that LA actually has NHL players in each position, where Edmonton has a few and then nothing else. And I do not see this, similar to the Calgary series, I do not see this one going very long, 5, maybe 6 games, and LA taking it.
I don't know. When I look at this one, I think a lot of people are overvaluing Mike Smith for the Oilers. He's a 40-year-old goaltender now. I'm not sure that he's going to go that far. I mean, when Smith is on, he's on, but he's also hurt a lot. And I think that, I don't know, to me, I feel like at this point, with him being 40, if you even, hit him in the net, you're committing elder abuse. So I don't know that he's going to last that long for the Oilers. And I think, again, he's part of that paper-thin group they've got. If he goes down and Koskinen's in, I think they're done.
Yeah, and I think they're done regardless. And to me, in terms of overall organizational talent, I think the Edmonton Oilers are the weakest team in the postseason, followed by LA, then followed by Dallas. And it's just one of those things that because 3 teams from each division have to make it, our division just happens to be quite terrible. And 2 of them had to make it, and they're the best two of a bad bunch besides Calgary, and Edmonton is just weaker in every aspect other than the fact that they have two superstars.
I think that's a good way to say it. I think, and that's been the case for years, right? As Edmonton's been propped up on their superstars, and I think that this might be, with the West the way it is, I think that Edmonton could make it out of the first. I don't think Edmonton has any hope of making it out of the second.
Well, put it this way. If Edmonton was facing any of the other 14 teams in the first round, they would lose. Mm-hmm. I think literally, even with Saros being out, I think Nashville could take them. And I think literally any other team would beat the Edmonton Oilers in a 7-game series. So LA is the only one that they, I think, have a shot at beating. And I don't even think that they can do that. Just because you do need 20 players, and the playoffs are a marathon. Especially, what are they going to do? Play McDavid and Draisaitl 30 minutes in the regulation, and then, it's overtime, and you're already dead tired. Superstars are getting played, 50, 60 minutes? If the game goes into double overtime, triple overtime,
you're going to have those guys done in 2 games.
Then what else do you have? Nothing. Literally, the rest of the Oilers team is just embarrassingly bad. So, unless those two basically outscore LA and somehow break through Kopitar, which is a tall measure, I do not see Edmonton getting on.
I agree with you. Well, coming back to the Flames, we got 3 games this week for the Flames. Obviously, Game 1 at the Scotiabank Saddledome on the 3rd. That's an 8 p.m. start.
Then I'll be there, so I'm very much looking forward to that one.
There you go. And then the 5th, another 8 p.m. start at the Saddledome. Then the 7th in Dallas, a 7:30 start time, Hockey Night in Canada. 3 games on the docket. Neither of us did well last week, so let's see how we do this week. I'm going to go with the Flames win 1 and 2 and lose 3. Sure. I pretty much, I was going to say the same thing. And I'll be different. I'll say they'll win all 3. You think they're going to win all 3? All right.
Just to be different, but I think what you said is how it'll
I think, and I think a big thing here that some people are underestimating for this team is just how much the Saddledome crowd is going to play for the Flames. And I think the fact that they have more home games if this goes to Game 7, I think that Saddledome crowd is going to be a huge impact for the Flames. And I think that, especially in Game 1, coming out with that crowd there, it's going to be electric. And I think that's really going to ramp the Flames up. They've even talked about that since coming back after COVID and having a half full and then full building, what that's done for them.
Yeah, and especially with how well the team has played down the stretch. And, they ended the season on a 10-2-2, which really the last 2 I don't even count, run. They have been really impressive down the stretch, which, you and I were both concerned of, are they going to let up? And, we've seen the Colorado Avalanche, they really let up. And, they lost 5 or 6 of their last 7 games and looked terrible through most of it. And, I wouldn't even be surprised if Colorado gets booted in the second round, with just coming in so cold. But
if Nashville had Saros, I could see them even going out in the first round. But with no Saros in Nashville, I think it might take till round 2.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Nashville will give them a harder go than they were thinking, even without the goalies.
Well, before we sign off this week, we're going to... one of my favorite parts for the Flames in the playoffs, and it seems to be a regular thing now, is all the playoff anthems that get made. We all remember In the Dome from a few years ago. That's still one of my favorites. I want to highlight the playoff anthems where we can, and we have one already. It's called Smooth Like Sutter. So we'll sign off, and we'll play that at the end of the show here, and as new anthems come out, we'll feature them on the show if we can get permission. If you've got a playoff anthem you want us to feature, let us know on our social media, or send us an email through the website, and we'd love to play some more of them. Matt, have you heard Smooth Like Sutter?
Not yet, so this will be my first listen.
There you go. You get to listen to it too. So let's sign off, and let's send everyone off to hear Smooth Like Sutter.
And as always, everybody, go Flames go, and I can't wait to hear that building rock.
It'll be a fun one.
Smooth like cider, Elias Lindholm, there ain't no other. Shilling Tanner got the top line smothered, breaking everyone's hearts like that. Backs and money, we got Doobie and Mangiapane. Upstairs a Tree, Snow and Connie, about to get Lord Stanley back. When I think of the Hart Trophy, I think of Johnny Hockey. Fans known for superstar goalie Marquee. Everybody like sidestep, right, left to a deke. Bruce and go Brats and a big C. You know that we got you beat. Let me show you, cause talk is cheap. Sidestep, right, left to a deke. The cup is coming home. Don't slap Screamer with Luch in front as the screener, or a Kachuk in between her. Remind you, we still got Vlad. Tyler took Foley. We got Yarkirk, the boy Cali, rising up like Valley Mackey, about to get Lord Stanley back. When I think of the Jack Adams, Coach Sider's got them all beat. Just go and give the Selkie to Lindy. Everybody like sidestep, right, left to a deke. Bruce and go Brats and a big C. You know that we've got you beat. Let me show you, cause talk is cheap. Sidestep, right, left to a deke. The cup is coming home. Go, play, go, oh, go, play, go, oh, go, play, go, oh, go, play, go, oh, plays in six, oh, plays in six, oh, go, play, go, oh, go, plays, go, oh.
Brett Rich and Trevor Lewis gonna beat ya. Up and comers like Mackie and Ruzicka. Gonna keep the dome rocking cause we need to defeat the haters.
It was in an 04, but it's a new time. Razzie and Hanny anchoring the D-line. Big Patton taking calls on overtime. This is our time, get out the way.
Sidestep, right, left to a deke. Bruce and go Brats and a big C. You know that we've got you beat. Let me show you, cause talk is cheap. Sidestep, right, left to a deke. The cup is coming home.
Carpenter, Coleman, and you know we don't stop. Rolling, full lines, intensity for puck drop. We're bringing heavy hockey, the way you're beating Calgary. Faster, rougher, meaner, tougher, Sutter.
The cup is coming home.
It was in.
Fireside Chat is hosted by Dan Stevenson, co-hosted by Matt DeBorg. This episode produced and edited by Peter Marino. Fireside Chat is licensed under Creative Commons license. For full license details, visit firesidechat.ca.